We'll be looking at some of the character traits that makes Esther's story stand out. That is in the book of Esther, the Old Testament. I'm going to be reading from the English Standard Version. This is Bible study with Amina. So, chapter 2 of Esther. After these things, when the anger of King Ahasuerus had abated, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what had been decreed against her. He decreed it too. He said what had been decreed against her. Then the king's young men who attended him said, let beautiful young virgins be sought out for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom to gather all the beautiful young virgins to the harem in Shusha, the citadel, under custody of Haggai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women. Let their cosmetics be given them, that's beauty treatment, and let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. This pleased the king, and he did so. Now, after these things, when the anger of King Ahasuerus had abated, after all these things means after everything that happened in chapter 1, that Vashti disobeyed the king got angry and all, the king still felt bad because he genuinely loved the queen. But then he had to do what he had to do because he's a king. This is where the story of Esther starts. Chapter 2, verse 5. Now there was a Jew in Shusha, the citadel, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jai, son of Shimei, son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem among the captives, carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried away. He was bringing up Hadassah, that is Esther, the daughter of his uncle, for she had neither father nor mother. The young woman had a beautiful figure and was lovely to look at. And when her father and her mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. So when the king's order and his edict was proclaimed, and when many young women were gathered in Shusha the citadel in custody of Haggai, Esther also was taken into the king's palace and put in custody of Haggai, who had charge of the women. And the young woman pleased him and won his favor. The young woman pleased him and won his favor. I want us to take note of that. We'll revisit it later. And he quickly provided her with her cosmetics and a portion of food, and with 7 chosen young women from the king's palace, and advanced her and her young women to the best place in the harem. She pleased Haggai, the eunuch in charge of the women. She pleased Haggai. She wasn't just beautiful and lovely to look at. She pleased Haggai. So there's something about her. It's her appearance, but it's also her aura. And we're going to be looking into that in the next chapter and as we read along. Esther had not made known her people or kindred, for Mordecai had commanded her not to make it known. And, and every day, Mordecai walked in front of the court of the harem to learn how Esther was and what was happening to her. Now, when the turn came for each young woman to go into King Ahasuerus, after being 12 months under the regulations for the women, since this was the regular period of their beautifying, 6 months with oil of myrrh and 6 months with spices and ointments for women. So I was studying into why oil of myrrh, and I learned that oil of myrrh is for cleansing, purification, and softening of the skin. They had to go through all this before they could go in to bed with the king. Then another 6 months with spices and ointments for women. This is to help them smell good. When the young woman went into the king in this way, she was given whatever she desired to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. In the evening, she would go in, and in the morning, she would return to the second harem in custody of Shazgaz, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the concubines. She would not go in to the king again unless the king delighted in her and she was summoned by name. Let me explain this. So after any of the virgin or the maiden go into the king, She doesn't go back to the harem where she was from. She goes back into another harem. This harem is dedicated to the king's concubines. Imagine a young virgin. She goes in with the king. Unless the king delights in you and calls you by name, remembers you by name and call for you, you can't appear before the king. You can't see the king. You just stay there. And there's a possibility that some of these virgins would only get to see the king and be with the king once in their lifetime. And that's it. Once in their lifetime, and that's it. So you're either the queen, the crown queen, or you're the king's concubine. And if you're the king's concubine, possibilities are that you only get to see the king once in your lifetime. You're just relegated to the harem where the concubines stay in the palace, and that's it. That is a lot of sacrifice. That is a lot of gamble for the young woman's life. Verse 15. When the turn came for Esther, the daughter of Abiel, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as his own daughter, to go into the king, she asked for nothing except what Agai, the king's eunuch, who had charge of the women, advised. Remember that she didn't make known her kindred or where she's from because her uncle Mordecai commanded it. She obeys and submits to the authority of the uncle. Now, when she got to the RM where Agai was in charge of, she's also following the order of Agai to the point of Agai choosing what she's going to wear to present herself to the king. Hmm. Now, Esther was winning favor in the eyes of all who saw her. Now, Esther was winning favor in the eyes of all who saw her. What do we understand favor as? Unmerited grace. But let me tell you, grace can be merited. This favor, okay, maybe not like grace, like the kind of grace that Jesus Christ gives, but favor in this aspect, favor can be merited. Favor can be merited. And it's obvious through Esther's demeanor. Like she's allowing herself to be led. First led by her uncle Mordecai, and now being led by Agai to the point that she's allowing Agai suggest what she would wear, and she's going with Agai's suggestion. Now, this is the repercussion or the ripple effect or the result of her submission. And when Esther was taken to King Ahasuerus into his royal palace in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign, the king loved Esther more than all the women, and she won grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Oh my goodness. Then the king gave a great feast for all his officials and servants. It was Esther's feast. He also granted a remission of taxes to the provinces and gave gifts with royal generosity. What dethroned Vashti? Arrogance, pride. From reading this and the king meeting with Esther and giving her a crown, like placing the royal crown on her head, I can tell you that it is humility, submission. When you are humble and you are submissive, it will show. It will show in how you carry yourself. It will show in your demeanor. Humility is not a trait that is hidden. It shows. Humility has a fragrance. It will show. From what we've read, from what we've read, from how she first submitted herself to tutelage, direction under Mordecai, up until when she got to Haggai, the eunuch in charge of the women, to the point that Haggai delighted so much in her. Humility is not lack of questions, or humility would show. Is Join me as we further study the rest of the book of Esther to uncover this trait of hers that's earned her favor. Yes, there is the God factor, but there is also the man factor. There is the God factor, there is also the man factor in the story of how Esther gained favor in the sight of everyone who saw her, who encountered her. So we'll be studying the entire book of Esther and eventually the entire Bible. Join me as we further do this together. God bless you.